so good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for being willing to do this.
Yeah, I'm excited. I just really enjoy being a part of our campus. And I've been thinking about like, God, what do you want me to say? And so I'm really excited to share some thoughts.
Awesome. And I'm stoked to hear them. So how long have you all been homeschooling?
Okay, so we're a young family. I have 3 sons. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a soon-to-be 5. He's currently 4, but we will breach that threshold very soon here. And so we have been homeschooling for 5 years, and we've been with CC for 4.
That's great. And so, what advice would you give? In fact, in our pre-discussion, you even shared that you're a first-year director and you
Yes.
have a lot of new families. So, what advice would you give to a new homeschooling family?
Okay, so one thing I'm really good at is repeating good information that was already given to me. So I'm going to tell you some things, but don't for once think that this was my original thought, because I sure like to share when it is my original thought. When I started homeschooling, some great advice that was given to me was said, your first year is your hardest year. And that's the year that you deconstruct what you think education is. I was like, okay. I wasn't given more than that because it's something that we each walk through a little bit different. So I was told, and I like to tell other people, you need to find that mom whose youngest child is the same age as your oldest child and spend time with that mom. When your anxieties start to increase, oh, mine do. When your thoughts, when you catch those thoughts that are not of the Lord, then you reach out to that mom whose youngest child is the age of your oldest child, and you go to her couch, you go to her door, and you talk to her. So I like to share that. I always, CC is real big on easy plus one, and that is a mantra and a phrase that I think works if you're new to homeschooling, a first-time homeschooling, that you've been doing this for a while, you're homeschooling your last child. If you're decades into homeschooling, I still think easy plus one is a really helpful tool. Take something, and until it's easy, don't add another thing. And you'll know when it's easy because you're ready to add one more. And then I have some people that I just really like diving into the wisdom that they share. And I think Sarah McKenzie is one of those people for me. And she wrote a book called Teaching from Rest. And I always say, hey, if you are going to pick up to read something, I would say read Teaching from Rest. It's what I tell to people.
Love it. That's great. Such great advice. The whole easy plus one, Teaching from Rest is a great resource. The Core by Lee Borges is another great resource as well. That's great advice. How about for maybe some more experienced homeschooling families, Ryel, that maybe as a good reminder or an encouragement for them?
Yes. Okay. So God is so creative, right? Like he's so amazing. But he is also unbelievably consistent. And when I look at brain development, I just see God in the midst of that. And so when I think, okay, what advice would I have for those that have been homeschooling, they're going to continue homeschooling? Like I'm breaching into that realm, right? I just try to remind myself of brain development, and the brain resets for the first time at 6. And that's a whole nother wonderful conversation to have, but it resets for the final time at 12. And I'm always like, God, why then? So as I'm broaching into that season and I'm thinking about families that are past 12 or on 12, I just want to remember that, think about what it was like again to have that 6-year-old or that under 6-year-old. And what were the things you were focusing on, right? Are they eating? Are they sleeping? They weren't, not at birth, they weren't super verbal communicators, but you were just trying to figure out their cues. So dive in deep to who they are and try real hard to think about what is God saying about this person. And we know God's talking to them. So if you can get them to open up about what they think God's doing in that time and make sure they're eating and sleeping and resting. There's a phrase in our home that we say, leverage your strengths and make accommodations for your weaknesses. And so that's for everyone. Like me as a mom that's going to be homeschooling my older children, I need to leverage my strengths and make accommodations for my weaknesses just as much as I might advise that they do as well. And I think advising is key, because we get so used when they're so little to like telling them what to do. And that's easy to do and that's perfect and right. But as they get older, like, let's work getting into that space of advising. And then something I say, and I know sometimes I get some eye rolling from my preteens and high schoolers, but I say just really narrow down and work on the verbiage of virtues. And so in our home, because I don't yet have a preteen, we have been using We Choose Virtues and just memorizing what that definition is, because it gives us a baseline to have the conversation. So when you're older, I don't want you to necessarily use that virtue as a way to condemn. I want you to use that virtue verbiage as a way to connect in conversation with them. Like, I'll take one pretty simple: kindness, treating others the way I want to be treated. Well, how did you want to be treated in that time? Where were you at? How did you want to be treated during the math assignment? How did you just start that conversation with the verbiage? So, and I do want to say, I recommend that people read the core every year and the conversation and the question as well, because I feel like they really do hit on that brain development. Again, it's a consistent thing that God is allowing us to see him in.
Love that. That's great. And folks can, on that note, that I know CC will do periodic, sales and that kind of thing. And there's a couple things in their bookstore where you can go to the website and then click on bookstore, and they have bundles now that they are offering as well. But that's great advice to have them read, the core, and then the question, and then the conversation to go along with the program levels that are in CC. That's a great idea. What advice would you give, Ryel, to maybe the family that has been public schooling or charter schooling or private schooling that has now kind of been forced to educate at home? Any thoughts for them?
Yes. So the first thing I would say is really acknowledge you didn't plan this. Okay. So this was put on to all of us. I've heard a lot of people saying that have been homeschooling. I've thought this myself, like what we're witnessing across the US isn't homeschooling. That's not what it is naturally for my family, but we didn't plan for this either. So first of all, you didn't plan for this, and that's okay. But I feel like even in a conventional school, you've experienced something that's similar to this. Maybe we plan for the breaks that happen during summer, or we plan for the breaks that happen during winter. Maybe you have a little bit more leeway, but that shift and that change also happens in your family. So we go from several age ranges that don't spend as much time together to spending a lot of time together. And in that, I think, is when okay, so let me say it this way. When a big change happens in your home, that's the best time to make another big change. And so let me tell a story a little bit. When we hit into shelter in place or stay-at-home orders, we didn't know how long that would last for, just like you didn't. We didn't know what the next thing would be. So a big thing happened in our world. So I thought, okay, this is the best time to make another big change. Well, let's pay attention to the things that are being neglected, like the windowsills and the drapes and the weeds. And let's be physical in a sense, because I'm a boy mom and we have a lot of physical needs, but that it gives a way to reduce or relieve that stress that you're under. And then I'd say, hey, leverage your strengths and make accommodations for your weaknesses. You don't have to be homeschooling during conventional hours. You can do it maybe when someone is rested or when you're rested. And I would say, read aloud a lot. There's been so many great resources that are digital opportunities for us to go places that we would never have been able to go before, museums to see and books to hear from and authors to listen to about why they wrote that. But there's so much value in reading. And so you can have an audiobook on and then you're not reading it, but there's value in that participation. I'd also say never take for granted the amount of energy it takes to learn. And that could apply to whether you were pushed into homeschooling or you chose homeschooling. Never take for granted how much energy it takes to learn. So give space to that as well. Allow yourself to rest and allow them to rest, and focus on that emotional health. Oh man, Noble, I guess we could just keep talking for hours.
Such great skinny. I love it.
I hope it's encouraging, because what I've been seeing is a lot of not encouraging things. And so you've done this, you can do this, you are doing this. And so just keep on keeping on.
Love it. Yeah, that's awesome, Ryel. So you've, as a director, you've had to transition to virtual kind of classroom experiences and stuff. How has that experience been? Now, I know obviously that's not CC's philosophy. That's not what we're going to do in the future. The best case scenario obviously is in physical community where you can hug each other's necks and pray for each other, and kiss the babies and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But due to the circumstances and stuff, a lot of folks have had to pivot. How has that experience been for you?
So again, I would love to take credit for this, but I can't. There's such a creative and inspiring mom on our campus that started a Marco Polo kids chat. And I think the impetus for this was we have a lot of extroverts, and we have, rightfully so, extroverts really miss spending that one-on-one time together with each other. But in this Marco Polo kids chat, we saw all the training that was happening during presentation throughout the year come to fruition. I mean, these kids were coming up with such great things to present on, and we didn't call it presenting, so now they wanted to. So it was happening a lot. Great life skills. I mean, I know how to make almond milk now in case I run out of regular milk due to that CC Marco Polo kids chat. And they were inspiring, and they were creative, and it was really delightful to be a part of. So that's just one aspect that I thought benefited our campus. And then we moved Essentials virtually, and we used Zoom platform, which has some great options like a breakout room where we could really use that time and have students being one-on-one, working on their sentences, working on their papers, and you could pop in, hey, is everyone okay? You got any questions? Okay, you could pop out. And affording that responsibility and individualism, I think really helped our community. And then another thing that I want to say is, you're right, Noble, this wasn't the original intent of CC to do education this way. But with the chat room box, I got to hear from students that I wouldn't normally hear from. And I got to hear just perspectives that there wasn't space for that in the class. And so I keep racking my brain, like, how can we keep this going? Because I know we're going to meet together again in community. But I want to take what we've learned and leverage the great things of it for our campus. So that's been something that's going around in my mind. And then we got to do Faces of History in a digital format. Was not our original plan. I had big plans for our campus, and I make plans and God directs my path, which is something we say a lot. And I have to say, the way it turned out was very meaningful, and I really enjoyed getting to watch the kids do that. And then as collectively as a campus, we got to stitch that all together and present it as a campus. And so more families had an opportunity to learn about the Essentials program and see Faces of History that wouldn't have necessarily had that opportunity if we were meeting face-to-face in community. So I think those were, and then I have to point this out too, because, I'd like to think that I'm so great at adapting to digital things and learning curves and things like that. I mean, I'm an adult. But I got to learn from our students. They were able to quickly be able to tell, are you on a Mac or a PC? I'll tell you exactly where to look. And they were able to show us and work with us. And we were able to say, hey, I just learned something from you, and I can continue learning from you.
That is awesome. What a neat, story, and great experiences there to share. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thanks for listening.
what have been some fun family activities that you all enjoy doing together?
Okay, yes. So we're big, we love to eat in this house. And one of the things I was going to say, we're big foodies. Food is a source of constant conversation. Um, so we like to read aloud and take notes of what the characters are eating. And then we'll watch the movie if that read aloud has a movie, which is what we're looking for. And then we'll eat what the characters ate in the book while we watch the movie. Well, we don't have that opportunity right now to say, go find some French uh, soda that we don't have access to, or we don't have the opportunity to explore those food qualities. So we've been going over our virtues, and then we've been reading aloud and saying, like, which character has this virtue? And then we'll watch the movie and say, was it represented the same? Was it different? Why? Was it better? That's been fun. I think this is fun. I don't know if my students do, but we've been writing a lot more and writing to grandparents and aunts and uncles. And we have a assisted living center that's not too far that we would go and read with on a monthly basis. So now we're writing to them. And it gave us an opportunity to go to the mailbox and put something in there and check to see if something was being returned. And let's just say our writing is really improved, which is good. I think what the kids like is that they've had so they play video games, and it's like a ledger board. They've been having some battles on video games, and they built a Lego trophy, and it's been getting passed around each weekend. So we have a upcoming battle, not in the near future too.
Love it. So many creative and fun ideas. That's awesome. How about an encouraging Bible passage or verse that has really helped you through some of your homeschooling seasons?
Yes. Okay. So I deal with anxiety, and I can't be the only one that does. So yeah, thank you. So I really wanted to share some verses with you that I lean on because, listen, there are so many great homeschooling and encouraging and verses that are so inspiring. And I've heard from so many of them on your podcast and your YouTube channel, which I'm so thankful for. But what I really wanted to share with you is, when that question gets in my head and I get locked on to that question, I remember this story about the man going to the town, and he was really focused in the Old Testament. Sorry, I wanted to look this up to be more specific, but it doesn't lose its value. He was going to a town because God told him to. And then he was solely focused on getting there. And God said, now I want you to go back the way you came. And when you go back the way you came, you see where God was before him, even the things he didn't notice while he was going to that town. It's an easy thing for me to do. So what I like to really focus on is 1 Chronicles 16, 8 through 12. I'm an Old Testament junkie. And there it tells us, give praise to the Lord and proclaim his name. Make known among the nations what he has done. Sing to him, sing praise to him. Tell of all his wonderful acts and add glory to his name. Let the hearts of those who seek God rejoice. And so remember where he came before you so that you can cast your cares upon him, like 1 Peter 5, 6 through 11 tells us. And so I would share that with you. Remember where he's come before you. Cast your cares upon him. He's been there on the road, even as though you were passing by. And when you're in your homeschooling journey, he was there, even when I didn't notice. And if I take time to look back, I see him.
Awesome. Love that. Love those verses. And I love that thought. That's awesome. Okay. So right now, CC is doing a gratefulness campaign, and I'm going to provide the link in the video, or the title of the video, so that folks can include their 15 to 30-second video clip of what they're grateful for. And CC,
that's great.
Yeah, we'll put those clips out every Tuesday and Thursday. So in light of that, Ryel, what are some things you're grateful for?
Oh man, I can't stop talking about my community. I am so thankful and grateful for my community. Oh, I mean, I told you about that Marco Polo kids chat. There was one for the moms as well. And we have been consistently meeting for girls' night in on Zoom calls for once a week. And I am just so thankful that I have an honest place to land when, I might be tired of just sheltering in place. I can't be remiss to say I'm thankful for the health that we have and the consistency that God has provided for us. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to give during this time. Maybe if it's monetary, or maybe if it's just providing some meals or some food. It's been encouraging for us, and I'm thankful for it.
That's great, Ryel. Thank you so much for your time and sharing such awesome skinny. I know it's going to be a blessing and encouragement to a lot of people.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having a platform where we can do this. It is encouraging for me.